Well, hello, Moni. Thank you so much for being on Creating a Disruption, and also congratulations on being a adjunct faculty Besse winner.
Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it, and it's an honor to be a Besse Award winner. I had no idea what it was. I really didn't. I was clueless to it, and my department was like, "You got the Besse Award?" I'm like,
Big
"Okay,
deal.
it's a big deal," and it was surprising, but it was. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the experience, and I'm gaining a lot from it, actually, right?
Yeah.
So it's been nice.
So when your name was called at convocation, was that then just a true surprise to you?
Well,
Or at that point you're like,
kind of had a feeling, but did not. But just going up there and just hearing the story behind it from whatever the student wrote, that was awesome.
yeah. Well, that's always for me, the most powerful part is knowing that a student, or even students, were the ones who nominated you, right? To know that you made a difference in one or more of your students' lives, that they took the time to fill out the application.
Absolutely, I think I was calling it the People's Choice Award. That's what it felt like to me,
That's a
right?
nice way of putting it,
Because
yeah.
it really came from, yes, it came from a student, so it meant a lot. It did.
So, and hello, Karen.
Hello,
How are you doing today?
doing great, thank you.
Wonderful. So, for you, how have you disrupted your class by either creating a new assignment or project, using new technology, trying a different approach in the classroom? Why did you make the change? How did it go? I like to start with a simple question that
A
has
simple one.
multiple parts.
We can repeat you guys.
That's okay, that's okay. So, I would have to say, I taught on Thursday in the classroom, and when I walked in, one of my students, he said, "All right, Moni, so what are we going over today?" And I'm like, "I don't know yet," right? And it really is dependent. There's definitely an agenda, a syllabus that we have to follow. However, depending on my students' needs and if they've read the material or if they've completed a skills check off, I would have to change a few things. So, and I read the room. So that's what I like to do. I know there was a situation once where I had a student that came into the classroom, and my manager at the time brought her into class and she has her kids here. Her mom is picking up her children in like an hour. Do you mind if she sits in the classroom for a little while with her kids? She said they won't be a disruption. And I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and try it out, right? So she's in the back of the classroom, and they're okay, they're quiet at first, but they're kids, right? So then they're talking and they're disrupting and they're just talking, and I'm like, okay, what can I do? How can I make this work for all of us? So I think during the day we were learning, we were doing lectures. We have days where we do a lecture and days where we have labs. Well, this particular day was a lecture day. And I said, you know what? This is what we're gonna do. I said, typically we don't have live patients to do pediatric assessments on. So today, you're gonna have live patients and we're gonna do a pediatric assessment. And they were so afraid to touch these kids, and some of the kids' nose was kind of dirty, and then you had to go. And so it was awesome. It was a great experience. The mom was happy that I included her children. The students got to really learn. So every day for me is a little different.
Mhm.
I know there was a time where I would have my students present a chapter in our textbook. I think we learn a lot when we're actually teaching. And also working in the field of emergency medicine, you have to learn to work with people, and you have a partner. So I would partner them with someone, and it was usually personalities that didn't match well. I would put them together. Well, why do I have to do this? Well, I'm gonna do it. And I made it a day where they would come in, they would lecture and present their material, And we also had what we called our potluck. We would bring in food and we just made it a whole full day of just learning and fun and just, it was towards the end of the class. So it was like our end of the class type of party. So, I just try to do different things. I know there was a time where I'll look at the students and if I'm lecturing and I can see deer in the headlights and I'm like, okay, have you guys read your material? Let's be honest. And they'll, no, we haven't. Okay, well, this is what we're gonna do. Open up your book. We're gonna split off into teams. And on these teams, I want you all to find a question that might stump your other team, right? And then we're gonna play a game. I'm like, I create the rules as we go on this game.
Yeah.
So whoever would win, I would then purchase them like a little review packet that I found online, and I would give that to the winning team, and they always love that. So whatever I can do to keep their attention, keep them engaged, I try to make it fun. It is, that course is challenging. It's a lot of material in a short amount of time, and is some things in there that are difficult to learn. So if I can make it fun and keep them engaged, that's what I'm going for.
And are you teaching students like in the beginning of the EMT program, or do you have classes towards the end of the?
So I have them from the very beginning
Okay.
to the end.
Okay.
So they come in, some of them come in without any knowledge of medicine or anatomy or anything at all. So it's definitely a challenge for me with them.
I think one of the things that's so important that you mentioned is being able essentially to read the room and recognizing when everyone is not with you.
Yes.
For whatever it might be, if they didn't read or they're just, you don't know what's going on in their worlds that they just can't, and finding a way to make the changes to try to engage them. And that's so important to do. And I know sometimes, I've seen that look, and then you're just at a crossroad. Oh, do I keep going forward with this, or do I take that moment to find something else? And that could be the hardest part, is shifting, making a pivot.
Yes.
So is this something that was comfortable naturally for you to make this pivot, to change it up? Or is it something like over time you just got better at doing it?
I think for me, it's intentional. It started out where I would just do your death by PowerPoint kind of thing. And, I think about it like, is this how I would want to learn? And we all know there's different learning styles. And depending on the content, for myself personally, I could be a visual learner. I may need to hear something, or I may need to touch and actually do. So I try to provide that in every presentation that I do, because I know we have different learners. So it's very intentional, and I think it comes from different learning styles and teaching styles that I've seen.
What is one of the best teaching or learning experiences for you?
I would have to say it's not necessarily a given situation. It's more so, let's see, a great learning experience. I think the engagement of the students, and that is, I don't know, the engagement of the students and just seeing how they react after they've learned something, and seeing them from day one. Like I said before, they may not know what a patella is. Like, okay, well, that's your knee. You may not know that, or know that your phalanges, and they're learning all of these terms and they just don't have that understanding. And I tell them up front, it's going to be difficult. But trust me on this. It's the same thing that happens at some point. You're going to make that connection, and then I'm going to see you at the end of the class, and you guys are going to rock this out. I said, so just stay with me. And that is the part that I love. It is afterwards. It is where they come together and I see them from being those little naive non-EMTs to ready to save a life, and it's awesome. And I still have students that come back into my classroom and they're ready to help with labs, or they'll call me and I'm like, okay, you're calling me on a scene. You should be calling Med Command. Don't call me, right? So I think that is the best learning experience and teaching experience for me. It's just seeing my students' success and seeing them grow and learn, right? Not on their phones and truly paying attention.
Right.
Do you ever wonder, like, if the student can then look back and see their own progression? Like, you can see it in the classroom, right? Like, you can see them as they're progressing, they're getting the concepts, and then by the end, they're ready to go out and save lives. Do you feel like the students can look back and be like, wow, like, look how far I came when I didn't know what the patella was, and now I'm out here on the scene?
So I have thought of so many different ways of maybe videotaping them, while they're doing a patient assessment so that they can see what they did the very first time. There's something else that I do in the classroom where I will take the students and I'm like, this is gonna be bad. This is your first time doing this. It's going to be bad. It's okay, right? Because we're learning. So they'll feel that. I know they at least feel it because they're in front of the classroom and I'm like, these are the bystanders. You guys have to perform in front of people, so get used to it. So they're standing in front of the classroom, they may mess up a little bit, and then I'll have what we call a debrief, where we'll talk about what went well, what they could have done differently, and then everyone, the bystanders, of course, oh, they did this wrong and that wrong. I'm like, okay, that's easy because you're just watching, right? But towards the end, we'll do the same thing over again and they rock it, and it is, and they see it because I tell them quite often, remember this moment, just remember what it's going to be like. Right now, you're not going to do well. I'm going to tell you right now, I'll be surprised if you do well. But at the very end, it's great to see every single time. It's awesome to watch.
And I think it's good to go into it that way. I think sometimes, and I know some of the students I have, they want sort of perfection
Yes.
right at the very beginning, and go, it's not gonna happen.
No.
Maybe every so often, right?
A fluke, right?
But the reality is, this is the journey of education.
Yes,
like you
it
come
is.
in and you may not be able to do it, but by the end you can. And for them to have the experience to then reflect on and go, all right, this was really meaningful because now I can see exactly how I changed. And I think it's so important that you say that to students.
Because I remember a time where I messed up, right? But I also remember that I would never make that same mistake again because it was a huge mistake. So when you make those mistakes, it's a moment of learning, right? So I encourage you, like, I tell them, be confident in your wrong answer, right? Just be confident in it. If they're taking a blood pressure and they say to me, it's 120/80, and I'm like, is it really? Right? Right, because then I know, I'm like, just be confident in your wrong answer, 120/80.
Right.
And then we can talk about it later, right? So that's what we're human, we're going to make mistakes, and what better time to do it than in the classroom, than on a
Absolutely,
live patient, right?
That's the whole point of the classroom.
Absolutely.
And I think anyone has to kind of feel safe in that environment, right? To, let themselves be vulnerable enough to make mistakes in front of others, in front of their peers, and in front of their teacher, but also know that, like, it's okay and that it is part of the learning journey. But I think it takes a lot of focus to create that kind of environment in the classroom where there isn't perfection demanded and you can feel comfortable with your peers.
Yes, and there's some challenges in the classroom because we have definitely our policies that are within the school itself. Then we have to deal with when they go out into the field and they're working for an entity and they're dealing with their protocols. And then we have our testing guidelines that we have to follow. So I quite often will tell them, I'll let you know which one we're focused on today, because I would be remiss if I don't go out or do some things that are going to show you what it's really like to be out in the streets, right? I can do everything on here that's in black and white, but medicine in this field, such a gray area, and there's so many what ifs, and I think it's important to adapt to those, without a doubt, without a doubt.
Yeah. What is the best teaching advice you received?
So I can't say that someone said, hey, this is what you should and should not do.
Right.
I'm observant. I'm always paying attention. I am always ready to learn. And I had a mentor, and she's still my mentor. She was a 5th grade teacher, but she was also my high school counselor. Her name is Mrs. Sims. And she's just a fabulous woman. And when I talk about the student that was disruptive, if you will, I was that student. I was raised by my mom. She was divorced and she traveled for a living, right? So there were many times where I was home alone, or I would come and go as I pleased. And I wasn't a bad kid, but I was a kid. And there were times where I would have issues, or it was always social issues. And Mrs. Sims, if I had class and it was just a bad day, she let me cut from those classes sometimes because she knew that I needed the attention, and I think it's important. I was taught by someone that said the person in front of you is the most important person in your life at that time. So for my students, for me, is what I call my ministry. I like to give back to my students because right now is a rough world, and students need us. It's so much more than just educating on whatever topic that we have. It is trying to provide them a little attention, showing them some soft skills, the do's and don'ts of life. And it's a challenge. So I try to be attentive to their needs.
You seem very encouraging as well to students, that you would create this kind of positive and encouraging environment for them to be able to learn and then spread their wings and fly. I don't know, it just seems.
Thank you. So they call me the mom, right? Okay. So I was a captain with Cleveland EMS, and they called me Captain Mommy. that was my title, Captain Mommy. But again, I think for everyone, you gotta have a cheerleader, right?
Yeah.
We should be our own cheerleader. But there are times where we just can't do it. And if I can encourage someone or put a smile on someone's face, or that's my goal. It really is. It's my goal.
Wonderful. So we are moving into the part of the program where we will ask you 4 questions.
Okay.
It's more of a quick response, but feel free to elaborate. We don't hold you to the quick response. And so the first one is fact or fib.
Okay.
Say something interesting about you that's either true or not true. And we will come back to it after we go through all 4 of them, because then Kara and I will determine if it is a fact or if it's a fib. So It's a little game for us that we are not very good at.
No?
We don't have a very good track record.
Not at all?
I think,
One or two.
I think, well, oops, sorry. One, I know
One?
for me, I think.
Okay.
But
Just one?
out of the people that we've interviewed this season, I was right for one of them, so,
Only one?
yeah.
Okay.
But we can get into that later about exactly what happened. And maybe they weren't following the rules. So we'll start there.
Okay.
Fact or fib? Give us something interesting about yourself. Could be true or not, and we'll figure it out at the end.
Let's see. At some point in my life, I required CPR to be performed on me.
Okay,
Perform
We-
on you, right? Like
On me.
Somebody
Yeah.
do CPR. Okay.
all right.
I've done it all the time, but I'm saying this time
It was
it was
your
on me.
turn.
Mhm.
Okay,
I'm guessing now or later?
later.
Later, okay.
We'll think about this.
Okay.
We'll think about this.
Okay.
Favorite teacher and why?
Okay, so I told you about Mrs. Sims.
Right.
However, when I became an EMT, and I actually became an EMT here at Tri-C at this campus, when I got hired on working my other job, there was an instructor. And you know, there's something about as soon as someone walks in a room and the person is going to present, the one that stands behind the podium and requires a microphone, it's a little different than the one that stands right in front of you and there's no microphone and he's walking the room and working the whole room, and he was just so charismatic. And you know, I was kind of mesmerized by his teaching, and he is what led me to want to teach. I recall a time where he put a piece of equipment, we were learning airway equipment, and I thought we were going to do a PowerPoint, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be an easy day. And he took all the equipment and he put a piece on each person's desk, and he said, tell me about it. Tell me whatever it is that you know about it, and we'll fill in the gaps later. And I'm like, oh crap, I gotta do this, and I don't know what it is, but he made you think outside the box. He challenged you, he taught you rationale, he was funny, engaging. So I still find myself doing some of those things that he did when he taught me, and he's still teaching, and he's awesome. I had to call him once and say, hey, you know, I think you're amazing, and I kind of, you know, follow his lead.
Who is this?
His name is Clarence Moore,
Okay.
and actually he used to teach here
Okay.
for some years, and he's outstanding.
Fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
This is neither here nor there, but there was a moment after I graduated from undergrad, was doing a little adjuncting,
Mhm.
and I realized I just need to reach out to some of my teachers I had in undergrad just to say thank you, and I understand now what you were trying to do. Sorry I didn't say a word in your class for 6 weeks. Most embarrassing.
amends.
That's right. I just had to move on. You know what I'm saying? Most embarrassing moment in the classroom, either as a student or as a teacher.
Oh, that is so easy. That's an easy one for me.
Oh, good.
Not as an educator, but as a student. As a student, we had a day where we had to lift. And I was standing at the end of this cot, and I'm trying to lift the cot. Now cots, you push a button and it just kind of, you know.
Wait,
This
is there
one-
a human on the cot, or you're just like?
Yeah, there's a human
Okay,
on the
okay,
cot,
okay,
right?
okay.
And that's what we do too. We'll practice with humans, so you'll have some empathy when you're on that cot, and you'll know what it feels like to be on the cot, right? So they're on the cot, and I'm like at the end, ready to lift it, and my instructor is behind me. And I go to lift the cot, and we had just gotten our new uniforms, and I'm in my uniform. I'm like, oh, this is awesome, right?
Uh-huh.
And I go to lift the cot, and I split my pants. Oh my gosh, and I mean, not just a little rip, I mean the whole seam,
Oh
like,
my goodness.
And like the loud audible.
oh, it was
Like the-
so bad, it was so, and I couldn't hide it, and he was right behind me, and
What are you gonna do?
yeah, what can I do?
Did you lift the cot?
I had to,
You had
right?
to.
I had a patient,
Yeah,
right?
right.
It wasn't a mannequin, it was a real patient,
It
so.
helps you out when you're
Yes.
out in the field.
Just
Sometimes your
a
pants will
tad
rip.
embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
Just a tad.
Absolutely. Finally, did you find teaching, or did teaching find you? Is this something you always wanted to be, or was there that moment? And I feel like you might have hinted at it earlier, but was there a moment you're like, this is something I want to do?
So it kind of fell into my lap. So kind of, sort of. Initially, I went to Ohio State to, I either wanted to be a teacher or I wanted to be a nurse, like a pediatric nurse kind of thing. And financially, I couldn't finish at Ohio State. So I'm like, okay, what can I do? And I had a cousin that worked as a dispatcher for Cleveland EMS. And she's like, just take the course. You could take it at Tri-C, and it's a 3-month course, and then you can get hired on, which I did. And I took it here, finished the class, got hired on with Cleveland. And they said, okay, we're going to take you through the paramedic program. And I'm like, I don't want to be a paramedic. And that was Clarence Moore. And he's like, well, either you could be a paramedic or you can quit. Here I am, right? So here I am. So I became a paramedic, and it was during the time that he was teaching that I'm like, I can do this, right? And after a couple of injuries from working out in the field, they would put you on light duty. They put me on light duty, and it started with me teaching CPR. And I started teaching CPR out in the community and found that I absolutely loved teaching, right? And then I'm like, okay, it kind of goes back. So since then, I've been teaching nonstop, and I teach a lot of advanced cardiac life support courses, and they're to nurses and physicians. And I'm like, okay, it's kind of sort of what I wanted to do. I wanted to be an educator and a pediatric nurse, so now I'm teaching nurses and that kind of thing. So it's okay. So it kind of fell into my lap, but I absolutely love it.
Wonderful. And that's a good transition back to the start with CPR to you had CPR performed on you. Would you like to go first, Karen?
Sure, because I actually changed. Once you talked about that
First one.
Should I go with my first one? I'll go with my first one. My initial thought is that you did have CPR performed on you because you needed like that lesson in life to like be on the other side, because you have been out saving other people's lives, and I feel like you would learn a lot from being on the other end. And so I think that you did have CPR performed on you.
Okay.
Are you saying that not as an emergency thing, but just as sort of like to see what it's like?
No, like something happened and you
Okay.
like had to have CPR done on you.
Oh, and then that's why I became like a.
Or just at some
It's
point
like that
in your
moment.
career.
It's like the perfect story. What
Ah.
am I going to do?
Yeah.
I had this near-death experience. I was
Yeah.
brought back to life.
I didn't go that far that you almost died, but I.
Oh, sorry. Well, my head, it was a wonderful story, near death, saved, and you're like,
Well, that's what CPR is, right?
and you came back like, this is my life.
Right.
This is what I want to do.
And it taught you how to be a better EMT because of that. That's where I was. So yeah, I just didn't get to the point that she almost died. But
Yeah, I'm sorry
now
that you
I'm
go there.
What do you think? Fact or fib?
Fib,
Fib.
yes.
Fib.
Do you see how confident I was?
I was
Yeah.
very confident.
Why are you so confident?
Because
You
you
said
told
to
me to
me.
be confident, even if I'm wrong.
Yes. All right. Well, can I give you the
Ladies
answer
and
now?
gentlemen, fib.
All right. You ready?
Yeah.
It is so true. It is so true.
Kara, too.
Yes.
All
It's
one.
right. So it's not what led me to, again, that kind of fell into my lap. I wanted to be a nurse, and then nursing was just like, I wanted to look cute in those uniforms.
And not split the pants.
Right. However, when I was an infant, I was sickly. I mean, I would have seizures and a lot of respiratory issues and asthmatic. And my mom told me that there was a time where I think she left for a little while. She left, and I guess I had some separation anxiety or something. She came back in the room, and I was not breathing and no pulse.
Wow.
As a baby. And she said she ran out with me in her arms, and the police showed up, And it was actually a Cleveland police officer that performed CPR on me. And this was well before like EMS, because EMS started in 75 here in Cleveland, and I'm a 71. I'll tell my age. I was born in 71. So he actually performed CPR on me. So I think it is just, you know, that whole story. It's not why, but everything for me is like, has become full circle.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
being a student here and 20 years later becoming an adjunct instructor here, and it's
An award-winning.
Award-winning.
yes, thank you very much.
That is
Yes,
full
yes,
circle.
yes.
Yeah.
People's choice, Besse's choice, right? Yes. So it's been an amazing journey. I'm loving it. I am. So sorry.
Oh, that's all right. You know,
He's used to it.
that's what?
I mean, we don't have a very good track record.
No, we
this season.
see. Sometimes people trick us and they give us sort of a half truth.
Ah.
So that's what's been getting us. That's what I stick by
Okay.
going forward. But
Yeah. It's not you.
no, it's not. No, not me.
Not at all. Right.
But I do like the newfound sense of confidence of
Yes.
Right.
confident
regardless,
even if you're
just-
wrong. Just
I
go
think
with it.
that is so important, right? Yeah, it's so important, and it
Because
happens
if you
out in the
say it with
field.
so much confidence, people might be like,
They might believe you.
"Wait a second, maybe I was lying."
Yes. They may just believe you. So, and that's what I tell them when they go out into the field. They can smell and feel like weakness. They being the patients
Mhm.
and families and that kind of thing. So you need to be confident.
Absolutely.
You know, you have to be. Now, there's
Yeah, 'cause
always.
you don't want someone coming up to you like, "I don't know which one to give
No.
you," because you're like,
Would you
"No,
want that?
No, I mean,
No.
never mind.
Yeah.
No, but at the same time, we have to know our limitations and be open to receive some constructive criticism when it comes to different things. So for me personally, when I was on the squad, I'm just that girl, like after a call, I'm like, okay, how did that go? What did we do? Like even years of being on the squad, there's always something different that happens, and there's always an opportunity to learn, and that's what I try to instill in my students. You will never stop learning. It's ongoing, right? And if you feel like you know it all, then you need to quit.
Right. Right.
It's just that simple.
Absolutely. Well, Moni, thank you so much
Thank
for being
you.
on the podcast. This was a delightful conversation.
Thank you.
And congratulations again on winning the Besse Award, the People's Choice Award.
The People's Choice Award. Yes.
And I hope that the rest of your semester goes well, and I'm sure it will.
Oh yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
rocking it out this semester, and thank you for your time, and it's been an honor to be here. Thank you. Thank you.